Okay, children, in this class we will be discussing dielectrics, the behavior in an external electric field, and we will also be discussing capacitance, which is an important topic for your regular boards and also for the competitive exams, a very conceptual topic. So we will start with dielectric substances. What are dielectric substances? In fact, in the previous video, we discussed conductors and insulators. Conductors are the substances which permit the movement of charges through them. Insulators are the substances which do not permit the movement of charges through them. Insulators actually are what? Dielectric. So we define non-conductors are called dielectrics. So the question is, why dielectrics do not conduct electricity? The very simple reason is because they do not have free charge carriers. They do not have free charges, right? So dielectric substances, dielectrics can be classified into two categories. One is, so you must keep in mind that dielectrics contain covalent bond. Which bond? They contain covalent bond. And you know that covalent bonds can be classified into two categories. One is non-polar and the other is polar covalent bond. Right? So similarly, dielectrics can also be classified into two categories. We have non-polar dielectrics and we have polar dielectrics. So non-polar dielectrics are the ones which have non-polar covalent bond. For example, we have hydrogen, we have oxygen, we have nitrogen. Okay, these are, we have carbon dioxide. These are non-polar dielectrics. But we have certain dielectrics which contain polar covalent bond and therefore they are called polar dielectrics. For example, we have HCl, we have water, we have ammonia, we have acetic acid. They all contain what? Polar covalent bond and therefore they are called polar dielectrics. Let's see how these polar and non-polar dielectrics look like when we do not apply any electric field. First we will study how does a non-polar dielectric look like. See, non-polar dielectric basically has a situation in which the center of gravity of positive and negative charges are coincident. In this case, center of gravity of positive charges and negative charges are coincident. Something like this. You can see that the nucleus is very closely surrounded by what? Electrons. Hence, there are no free electrons, there are no free charge carriers. These are non-polar dielectrics. The center of gravity of positive charges is surrounded by center of gravity of negative charges. They are both coincident on each other, like this. Now, when we talk about polar covalent compounds of polar dielectrics, take the case of, for example, HCl. In HCl, what we see? This is H plus having positive charge. This is Cl minus having negative charge, because the shared electrons are closer to chlorine as chlorine is greater electronegativity, right? So here also there are no free charges, but there is slight polarity because the shared pair of electrons will shift to the more electronegative of the two atoms which are undergoing the formation of covalent bond. So if I depict this will be something like this. You have positive charge this side and negative charge this side. Here you can see they are coincident. Here they are separated by a small distance. Right? Now these things will happen. So we can sum up our discussion like this. If you take a dielectric and you do not apply any external electric field, then in absence of an external electric field, this dielectric material center gravity of positive and negative charge will be something like this. Something like this. It is not necessary that it should vertically, you can keep it like this also. You can keep it like this also. You can do it either way. But they are almost coincident. When external field is equal to 0, we will not apply any electric field. This is how the molecules will be oriented. However, if you take a polar dielectric, then it will be slightly polarized, something like this. And they will be oriented randomly. Positive, negative. They will be oriented what? Randomly, but its molecules will be charged. Because the center of gravity of positive and negative charge will be slightly separated from each other. So this is the scenario when the electric field is equal to 0. You can see that they are oriented randomly here, so they will produce no electric field at all when external field is not applied. Now what will happen when the electric field is applied across them? Let's consider this situation. If I apply electric field, for example, I am applying electric field within two plates. This plate is positively charged and this plate is negatively charged. So imagine a situation in which I put either this or this. So what happens? This is the dielectric slab. And I am applying electric field. So I am applying electric field with the help of two plates. One is positively charged, the other is negatively charged. And electric field will be directed like this. I will denote this by E0. So when I apply this electric field across this dielectric or this dielectric, then what will you see? That the positive charges in both the cases, they have a tendency to move in the direction of the electric field. So this positive charge will move to my right, for example, and this negative charge will move away. So the molecule in which these two centers were coincident, it will be elongated now, it will be pulled, like you are given a ball and you hold it in your hands and you pull it, so it will be elongated, it will become something like this. Positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. Something like this will happen. Right? If I use a polar dielectric substance, then we will find that this elongation will be more. This is non-polar, for example. Non-polar. And yet electric field is not equal to 0. I will apply electric field. E0. If I put a polar dielectric substance, then the scenario will change. It will be similar, but it will be more strong. It will become something like this. This is how I am applying electric field. And this is the dielectric substance. And these molecules will be maybe something like a dumbbell. You can see here, they are being separated something like this. Positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. You can see molecules are being what? Separated now by greater distance. Positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. This is negatively charged and this is positively charged. I am applying electric field now. So in both cases we find that the whole dielectric slab gets what? Polarized, because the center of gravity of positive and negative charge is separated and the molecule gets what? Extended. Right? Similar phenomenon will be observed, but in this case in this case it will be less charge. But either we conclude like this, that when you will place a dielectric slab in an external electric field, then it will be polarized because the centers of gravity of positive and negative charge will be separated. Positive charge will move in the direction of the applied electric field, and then negative charge will move opposite to this in case of polar dielectric. So I'm sure you understand the concept that when we apply electric field across the dielectric slab, it will be polarized, it will be charged. So let's see in a nutshell what exactly is happening. We can summarize our discussion with a single diagram like this. This is a plate. Between the two plates happens the dielectric slab here. And then the molecules are being what? Polarized like this. Right? These molecules were spherical earlier, now they have been polarized. Negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. So, when you look at this whole dipole, then you can see that each molecule has been what? When you look at the whole dielectric slab, then you see that each molecule has been what? Oriented in a particular direction, and that is opposite to the applied electric field. The first thing I notice is that if I look on the left, then I can see that these charges minus q, they have not been neutralized. For example, if I count 1, 2, 3, 4. I am getting 4 units of negative charge, and I am getting this side. Same now 1, 2, 3, 4 positive charge. These charges were not there earlier. These charges are appearing when I am applying the external electric field. If I say that these charges plus q, p for polarized charge, then this side will be having what? Minus qp, which will be polarized charge, equal and opposite charges. So if I concentrate all these charges plus q this side, and this side I write minus qp, it don't think it has become like a dipole. It has become a dipole. I can assume the distance between them is what? D. And if it has become a dipole, it must also have an electric dipole moment. So you can see that this dielectric slab will be polarized. Now let's see what is happening to the electric field. We have already done by definition of the dielectric constant that electric field across the dielectric slab will decrease, and that will be what? 1 upon epsilon r. Clear? So let's see. First thing, number 1, that is to write our answer also. When a dielectric slab is placed in an external electric field, then it gets polarized. It gets what? Polarized. And children, polarization P is directly proportional to the applied electric field E. P is directly to the applied electric field E. P is equal to chi epsilon naught into E, where you have a new constant chi is called, it's a Greek letter, it is called electrical susceptibility. Electrical susceptibility. Electrical susceptibility actually shows the extent by which the dielectric slab can be polarized. So the first point is how that when a dielectric slab is placed in a electric field, it gets polarized, and polarization is directly proportional to the applied electric field. If the applied electric field is more, then polarization will be more. In vector form, we can write polarization of this equal to chi epsilon naught into E. You can also write like this. Okay, so the first point. Now second point. Number 2, electric field across the dielectric slab E equals to E naught by epsilon r. I can also write E naught by K, where epsilon r or K is dielectric constant of the dielectric slab. Now we will understand how much exactly is E. Let's consider how much is E. You take a note of this point, so erase it. Let's see how much is E. Now here we have a dielectric slab here, placed between the two plates. The dielectric slab, we know it is getting polarized. It's getting polarized. This is positive and this is negative. I am applying electric field E naught. Now the dielectric slab is being polarized, so this side is negative, positive. This is what is happening. You can see that if I look at individual molecule, it is something like this. So you can see that this molecule is going to have its own electric field now, like this, EI. So each molecule, children, is going to have an electric field which will be opposite to the applied electric field, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. Unlike a metal, unlike a conductor, when I add up all these electric field, children, it will be always less than E naught. If I add up total induced electric field, sigma EI, I will be denoting it by EP. I will denote it by what? EP, where E is electric field due to polarization. This is electric field due to polarization. Okay. So number 3, I'll say if I am applying electric field E naught here, then you can see this slab will have an electric field in opposite direction. This will be EP. Okay. So this is E naught which I am applying, and this is EP which is produced due to polarization. So I can write the third point here. Net electric field across the dielectric is E is equal to E naught minus EP. Very important. And when we know that E is equal to E naught by epsilon r, we can also write epsilon E naught by epsilon r or E naught by K, where K is another symbol that we use for dielectric constant. Okay, so this is the net electric field. Now, children, since electric field is becoming 1 upon epsilon r times, then potential difference will also decrease by the same amount. Number 4, Pg across the dielectric is V equals to V naught by epsilon r. So potential difference also decreases by 1 by epsilon r, and this phenomenon is also called dielectric effect. We also call it dielectric effect, and we will be seeing this effect in case of capacitor as well. So these are important points that you have to know. So what we learned, when you place a dielectric slab in an external electric field, it gets what? Polarized. Electric field equal dielectric slab becomes 1 by epsilon r. Net electric field E becomes E naught by minus EP, where EP is electric field to polarization. When I am getting all these fields, I am getting all induced fields is equal to what? EP. And potential difference of the dielectric slab becomes V naught by epsilon r. Clear? What does it mean? It means if I place here a dielectric slab, it will become like this. If this is positive and this is negative, it will become polarized. It will become polarized if we draw only the external charges. Okay? And then if this is applied field E naught, this will be polarized in field EP. And EP will be sum of all the fields due to induction or polarization of the individual molecules of the dielectric slab. Now, once you understood it, now the field property will be that induced dipole moment will be equal to QP into T, where T is the distance or length of the edge of the dielectric. Okay, between this center and this center, this distance is how much? D. Right? Once you understood this, then we have certain key terms. Certain key terms. Surface density of polarized charge. You see, this dielectric slab is getting what? Polarized. For example, this side is negative and this side is positive, and we said this is minus QP and this is plus QP. Right? Now, if these charges are distributed here on surface area A, then sigma P will be equal to QP by E. Clear? So, surface density of polarized charge, sigma P is equal to QP by A, where A is the surface area. Now, polarization P is defined as dipole moment induced per unit volume. Here we said the dipole moment V raised is equal to dipole moment per unit volume. And so this dipole moment will be QP into D and divided by volume. It will be QP into D. What will be volume? D into D. If I cancel out D and D, then polarization vector is Q by A. And we just now said Q by A is equal to sigma P. So here we come across very important is that P is equal to Q by A is equal to sigma P. So surface density of polarized charge will be equal to what? Equals to polarization. Okay. So this should be kept in mind. You may get a small derivation also in board exams on this. P is equal to sigma into P. So make sure that you write down all these derivations and learn them. Okay. Now children, we'll put in a relation between electrical susceptibility and dielectric constant. Relation between electrical susceptibility, relation between electrical susceptibility phi, which is capital X, and dielectric constant. Dielectric constant. You can write epsilon r, you can also write K. Any of these two symbols you can use for dielectric constant. Let's do this, children. We know net electric field across the dielectric slab. Once again, let me go back to explain to you. With the dielectric slab, I am applying electric field what? E naught. Then is how we induce electric field EP. Right? This is negative. This is positive. We already discussed it. So we know net electric field across the dielectric slab is equal to E naught minus E. Clear? And you know that electric field into a sheet is sigma upon epsilon naught. So it will be sigma P divided by epsilon. Okay? But we also derive that sigma P is equal to what? Polarizing P. So if I put this value as here, I will be getting EP is equal to P divided by epsilon naught. EP is equal to P divided by epsilon naught. But again we know but P is equal to chi into epsilon naught into E. So I can easily substitute this value here. Therefore, EP will be equal to chi into epsilon naught into E divided by epsilon naught. Cancel out. So this shows that EP is equal to how much? Chi into E. Right? So this value of EP, I'll put it in question number 2. Okay, let's putting the value of EP in equation 1. If you substitute the value of EP in equation 1, then what do you get, children? E equals to E naught minus chi into E. And once you got this, children, we'll just divide by E. You divide by, then what do you get? E by E is equal to E naught by E minus chi into E by E. Cancel out this. This is gone. 1 is equal to E naught by E minus chi. And you already know, but E naught by E is equal to how much? Permittivity of free space. Relative permittivity of free space or dielectric constant. So here I will replace what? I will replace by epsilon r minus chi. We got a very interesting relation. 1 equals to here. I write it clearly. 1 equals to this is epsilon r minus chi. So you can write epsilon r is equal to 1 plus chi. So this is the relation we got. Epsilon r is equal to 1 plus chi. Or you can say K equals to 1 plus. So make sure that you know this derivation and the important relation out here. The relation between dielectric constant and electrical susceptibility. Okay, children? Now, I hope you understood the behavior of a dielectric slab in an external electric field. Alright? Now we start with capacitance. Let us understand what is capacitance first. Actually, children, you have done various methods of charging a conductor, for example, right? And you also know the different conductors have different capacity of storing charges. Let's make a comparison, a practical comparison here. This is a conductor. I've taken a rectangular block as a conductor. I want to charge it. So now it will be in capacitance. This is a very technical topic, an interesting topic. Let's understand it. I've given you a conductor and I want you to charge it. So what you do? You transfer first charge here. You do it without any problem. But you want to transfer the next charge, and it will be slightly difficult. Because now, when you want to transfer another charge here, I have to do work against what? The pulse. And the more work I do, the more charge I transfer, and the more that I do, the potential will also increase. Now I go on charging, and you can see that the potential will go on increasing. So what we see? The more we charge, the more work we do, and the more the potential. So if I release, if I delete the work term, then I can say the more the charge I transfer, the more the work I do. Right? Now, if I say, what is the difficulty in charging? What is the difficulty in charging? The difficulty is like this. And I will go on charging and charging and charging, its potential will go on rising. Now a time will come when the potential will be so high that the air around it, the air molecules start getting ionized. Like air will become positive and air will become negative, this will become positive by induction, something like this. The air molecules around this conductor will start getting ionized, and therefore they start conducting. As a consequence, suppose I have transferred here charge Q. After this, if I transfer one more charge also, I transfer one more charge here, the charge will not stay here, it will go to the surrounding. Meaning, maximum charge it was able to contain is how much Q. But after that, we will find that the air around the conductor has become what? Conducting, because of increased interaction between these charges and the air molecules around it. And therefore, it will not be possible for me to hold any more charge on this conductor. The moment I give one more charge, it will go to the surroundings. But the charge will become, so I transform Q plus 1 total charge, but this charge will go away. So how many charges will be left? Q only. Suppose I transfer two charges. Now these two charges will be transferred to the surroundings. Still how many charges? Two charges. So what I am trying to tell you is that we cannot charge it beyond a certain point. If we charge beyond a certain point, then charges will start leaking from the conductor. Leaking of charges. Right? And therefore it will not be possible for me to charge it. Let's understand it like this. Suppose I have a bucket here. There is a bucket. And a bucket is 20 liters. Right? So you went and filled water in the bucket. And how many liters are filled in it? 20 liters. But even if you put 1 milliliter after 20 liters, what will happen? This water will float. It will discharge. Same thing happens. Right? So we said that each and every conductor has got a fixed capacity of storing charge on it. Right? And how much charge a conductor can store or not factors will be depending. One of the major factors will be geometry of the conductor, the size of the conductor. Okay, that's very crucial. We're discussing this. So let's start saying like this: the more charge we transfer, the more will be the potential of the conductor. But let me tell you, it does not mean that the more charges I will transfer, the more potential means that I can go on charging infinitely. No, I can only charge up to a certain limit, because I told you, once you cross that limit, then the charge will start leaking to the surroundings, like the water leaking out of this bucket. I cannot. 20 liters capacity, you can't go beyond this. Same thing. can't go beyond this, right? Nevertheless, within this Q capacity, the more you will charge, more will be the potential. So let's talk about this now. We can start by saying that charge Q will be directly proportional to potential of the conductor. So Q is equal to C to V. Now this C term is called capacitance of the conductor, and C becomes Q by V. Right? Now, what is significance of C? And C is called significance of C of capacitance. Children, capacitance of a conductor shows the capability of a conductor to store charge on it. So significance is, it shows capability of a conductor to store charge on it. But again, I caution you, don't think that I can go on charging infinitely. I cannot. I can only charge it up to a point till the air becomes conducting around it. And this particular potential is called breakdown potential. What do you call it? Breakdown potential. I cannot charge on this because air will start conducting, and then every time I transfer the charge will go to the surroundings, and its value is 3 to the power 6 volt per meter. I can't exceed this. Nevertheless, within this potential limit, here C is equal to Q by V. So we understood here the charge is directly proportional to potential, or Q is equal to C into V, where C is a constant which shows capability of a conductor to store charge on it. Let's understand C in a way more simplified way. Suppose I take two conductors. One conductor is here, another conductor is here. For this conductor C is 10, and for this conductor C is 100. And potential suppose is 20 volts. And V here is 20, here also V is 20. If I use this equation, then for the first conductor, Q will be C into V, which is 10 into 20. So how many units of charges will be storing? 200 units. But when I look at the second conductor here, then how much charge will be storing? C into V. C is 100, V is 20, 2000 units. So you can see, more the capacitance, more the capability of the conductor to store charges. So this term C is a beautiful term, and it will show us how much charge a conductor can store in it. Are you able to understand it now? So what is unit of capacitance? Unit of capacitance. Children, unit of charge is coulomb, and V is what? Volt. So inside unit system, unit is coulomb per volt. Coulomb per volt. But coulomb per volt is a large unit. We call it farad. We call it farad, and we denote it by what? F. Right? Where 1 farad is 1 coulomb per volt. Very important. 1 farad is 1 coulomb per volt. So how will you define capacity of 1 farad? If charge is equal to 1 coulomb, V is equal to 1 volt, then C is equal to 1 farad. So what does it mean? It means if a conductor can store 1 coulomb of charge when it is maintained at a potential of 1 volt, then its capacitance is how much? 1 farad. Okay? So let's write this. if a conductor can store 1 C charge at a potential of 1 volt, then its capacitance is 1 farad, 1 F. But children, don't think capacitance is a small unit. Don't think farad is a small unit. 1 farad is extremely large capacitance. In fact, in practical purposes, we will not be using capacitance of 1 farad. We will be using smaller unit of capacitance. So here we have smaller units of capacitance. So which small units of capacitance are we using? We have 1 millifarad. We are writing 1 small and capital F. It is 10 to the minus 3 farad. 1 millifarad is 10 to the minus 3 farad. Then we have 1 microfarad mu F. Okay, 1 I will not write. 10 to the minus 6 farad. Then we have nanofarad NF, which will be 10 to the minus 9 farad. Now we have 1 picofarad PF, which is 10 to the minus 12 farad. So you remember that 1 farad is extremely large capacitance. We will not be dealing with 1 farad. We will be using millifarad 10 to the minus 3, microfarad 10 to the minus 6, nanofarad 10 to the minus 9, and picofarad will be 10 to the minus 12. So these are the basic units that we will be using. Remember, children, that 1 farad capacitance is extremely large capacitance. Even if you make a conductor as big as earth, imagine having a conductor as big as what? Earth. Then even that conductor will have capacitance of only 7.13 into 10 to the minus 4 farad. We will be discussing that capacitance of earth, but before that we will be discussing factors influencing capacitance. So on what factors the capacitance will depend? On what factors? First one is size. First factor is size. More the size, more the capacitance. Size is a very important factor. More the size of the conductor, more is the capacitance. Okay. Now second one is very interesting. Presence of uncharged conductor. Now this is a very interesting factor. Let's see it. We have a conductor out here, and I am charging this conductor, and I am finding that as I charge the conductor, the repulsion among charges increases, potential increases, and therefore I cannot charge beyond a certain point. Hence, capacitance decreases. So we can say like this, that because potential is rising, I am not able to charge more. If I could reduce the potential, what I could do? If I can't change the size. I cannot change the size because I am being given this duster. I want to charge this duster. I can't increase the size. So you can ask, how can I increase this capacitance? Because you said C is equal to Q by V. If on the same charge Q, I could reduce the potential, then I could, what could I do? Then I could increase its capacitance. So, presence of uncharged conductor. Let's see what is the effect before I give you the notes. Here I took one conductor which is not charged. I placed another conductor nearby. This conductor is not charged. So what will happen, children? that negate this uncharged conductor will start charging by induction. So you know what is induction? The A linear, the positive charge will develop what charge? Negative charge. And the end which is far will develop equal number of positive charges. So you can ask me how it will help. See, negative charges are closer to the positive charges. So they will have a stronger force of attraction. And these charges will become bound charges. What charges will become? Bound charges. They will become bound charges. And these negative charges therefore will reduce the potential of the positive charge. Let's answer like this. Suppose potential of the positive charges, suppose I say 100 units. Now this negative charge here, this negative charge out here, these charges are producing a negative potential of minus 30 volt. But see, if these charges were not there, I would have got what? 70 units of potential, which was 100, it will become now 70. But the problem is that these positive charges will try to repel what? These positive charges. Even though they are at greater distance compared to negative charges, so as will be repelling, they will increase the potential of this one. So because these positive charges are there, I said this is potential V1. Due to charges here on the second surface, this is V2. Now these charges on surface 3 will produce some potential will produce plus 10. So 80. You can see that 100 would have become 70 if there were only negative charges. But because of some positive charges have also come in, the potential has become 80 now. Nevertheless, we say that potential has decreased from 100 to 80. So when potential is decreased, so obviously when this formula less the potential more the capacitance, so it will automatically raise the capacitance of the conductor. So we say presence of uncharged conductor increases capacitance. It increases capacitance, but by smaller value. Now, why by smaller value? Because these positive charges are also appearing. So we can use a trick. If these positive charges act like villains, I will connect it to one. And you know, potential of Earth is taken as negative, and Earth is biggest source of electrons around us. So each time a positive charge will appear here, an electron will flow from Earth and neutralize this positive charge. So if I connect it to Earth, then something like this will happen. Once I connect it to Earth, then something like this will happen, children. This will become positively charged, and this conductor will become negatively charged. Because all the positive charges are what? Disappeared. And then what will be the potential? There will be no V3, there will be only V2. So, this is the best way to increase the capacitance of this charge, because these negative charges will reduce the potential of the conductor, hence its capacitance will increase. Actually, this is the actual reason why the capacitance is increasing. So, we sum up our discussion. Third point. If an earth connected, if an earth connected conductor is placed near charged conductor, it increases capacitance. It increases and children, this final point, earth connected conductor, is the best way to increase the capacitance of a given conductor. And this arrangement which you are seeing here, this arrangement is called capacitor, commonly also known as condenser. So children, we will be defining what is a capacitor or condenser. Okay? Capacitor or condenser. So a capacitor or a condenser, in fact, is a combination of two conductors. One of the conductors is charged and the other is connected to earth, and it is used to enhance the capability of a conductor. So here I write a capacitor is an arrangement used to enhance the capacitance of a conductor. So children, what does it consist of? It consists of two conductors. One of the conductors is charged and that is connected to earth. So I will say a capacitor, the common term is condenser for capacitor, but we will be using this term capacitor and not a condenser. A capacitor consists of two plates, preferably identical plates. If one is a plain plate, one is a plain surface, a plain conductor, then the other will also be a plain conductor. If one is a spherical conductor, the other will also be spherical conductor. If one is a cylindrical conductor, that other will also be a cylindrical conductor. So you see, a capacitor consists of two plates. One of the plates, one of the plates is charged and the other is connected to earth. Clear? So based on this, children, you have to study three types of capacitors. We have, if both the plates are parallel like this, one plate is charged and the other is connected to earth, it becomes parallel plate capacitor. It becomes a parallel plate capacitor. Now, these plates may not be vertical, they can also be horizontal. I can also make like this. I can make this positively charged which I am charging, this is connected to, right? So both will become parallel plate capacitors. Now I can make spherical capacitors. I have one sphere here. Suppose I am charging the inner one, and the outer one is connected to earth, so it becomes spherical capacitor. The radii are, suppose this is R1, this is R2. This is spherical capacitor. If I wish, I can choose two conductors to be cylindrical. One cylinder is here, and concentrically I place another cylinder here. I can place like this. Suppose I am charging this one, and I am connecting the outer one to earth. It becomes what? This radius R1 and this radius R2. So this becomes cylindrical capacitor. Clear? Now, what is symbol of a capacitor? What is symbol of a capacitor? It's very easy to draw symbol of a capacitor. Symbol of a capacitor, children. A capacitor is symbolically represented by two parallel straight lines, one you mark plus, other you mark minus. If it is given like this, we will always understand it's a capacitor and it's fixed capacitance capacitor. Fixed capacitance. However, children, if we draw two plates, one plate will be positive, the other plate being what? Negative, and see another going through it. It is also a capacitor, but it's a variable capacitance capacitor. Variable capacitors. So children, we discussed what's a capacitor and we understood how many types are, we saw the symbols, and then in the next video we will be discussing very technical points about the capacitor. So only this much in this video. Thank you.